Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Bigfoot Dwarf, once again, you have found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy. We will again be dealing with the nefarious Dogman and werewolf topic. Absolutely delicious. I really was a tad bit under the weather, but now that Bigfoot Dwarf has released my shackles, it is once again time for him and I to take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, I see you have found your way through the darkness and into the Fox Den once again for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We have Brown Dwarf, who, yes, has made his way through the darkness in the werewolf-infested forest to set up the late-night fire so we can burn some timber and read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. What the heck you been up to, Dwarf? Long time no talk. Well, not really, but here.
Yeah, well, it's been a little while, but we've got several shows in, man. It's good to be back. Oh man, and speaking of burn, Southern California has been having these big fires going on, and we're pretty much in the middle of it, man. There's two of them, the two big fires, the Palisades fire, which is more on the coast, and then you have the Eaton fire, which is a lot closer to where I am, here in the Angeles Forest area. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy out here, and it's interesting what's been leading up to 2025 ending. Just talking the ending of 2024, we had quite a bit going on. I don't know if you're keeping up with some of the things, but you guys had the issue out in Jersey out east, which kind of spread out into other places and had that going on. And what was it, New Year's for us, we got that strange fog. I don't know if you got the fog out that way and or heard about it. And then a bunch of plane issues started happening within that time as well. I was keeping an eye on that, and just a bunch of other things popping up, and now we got these strange fires, in my opinion. I'm very close to South Pasadena, and then so that Eaton fires in the Altadena area, which is very, very close to Pasadena. So I'm like 15 minutes away. And when all that happened, we got a lot of smoke our way. Actually, our neighborhood here was blacked out for a little more than a day. And, some trees fell over. We had those crazy winds go by. And it's been a wild, wild situation since, man. But how you doing?
Dang, man. Yeah, that's some pretty messed up stuff for sure. And it's good to hear that you are doing well. And everybody that I know out there personally is doing okay. I mean, I've heard about some pretty messed up stuff, and that is unfortunate for everybody. How far away is because my buddy, who's a tracker and part of my science team, lives up near Cascade Lake in Yosemite. How far away is that from all this? Because I just don't
Okay.
really understand like how
Yeah.
California works, I guess.
Right. And Cali is big, man. It's massive. So yeah, that's definitely several hours away. I mean, you're talking these fires are in the middle of Los Angeles.
Oh,
Downtown is
wow.
not far from these fires. So it's in the city, and
So it's not like a forest fire? Okay.
well, yeah, one of them is they're calling them wildfires. And I quotation marks on that. I don't there's some theories right now going around and to the
Stuff we
start.
can't talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows, because we don't know yet, but there's stuff coming out in the news already, of what may have caused. But yeah, one of them is in the Angeles forest, so it's a trip because I tell you, one's on the coast, so we got on the beach, but people forget in Los Angeles we actually have some mountains very nearby as well. And so you could go on some days, if you're lucky, you could go out snowboarding and then go surfing. Yeah, so these mountains I'm talking about, it's the Angeles National Forest, the San Gabriel Mountains, and Altadena, the town that burned, is basically at the foothill. And you might find these mountains very interesting. There's a lot of stuff that strange stuff that has come out of there. And actually one particular area that I focused on is on the foothills of this area here, and it's called the Cobb Estate. It's an old property, and I guess this guy Cobb used to own it back in the day, and some weird stuff happened. I don't know, some strange some paranormal stuff also is known to be there. They call it haunted forest, and yeah, there's this talk of this witch that's around there, the witch of Cobb Mountain, and then also the Marx brothers. I think it was the Freemasons of Pasadena actually took over. I think after Cobb did, and then the Marx brothers, and then also there's these other brothers. The Wright brothers actually owned the property there as well, but there was, I guess, a mansion there in the past, which is no longer there. There's just like the base of what was a mansion, and it's just like yeah, some rocks that kind of make a base. There's not much left there, but it's known to be a paranormal hotspot. And I've known about it a long time, ever since as a teenager, and I finally have been going there since I've been back in Los Angeles. So I don't know the conditions of that spot there, if that actually all burnt as well. But yeah, this area of Pasadena and Altadena has a lot of high strangeness as well. I don't know if you've gotten into the old world topic. There's a big boom in the background. People still firing off fireworks and stuff like that, lighting fires, bro. It's been crazy. Um, yeah, so this area there has history with different things, and I actually recently had reported on an old Bigfoot report out of this particular area, that haunted forest spot. But going back deeper into the mountains, there's also old Bigfoot reports, and not too long ago we actually went out on an investigation to this particular campsite that had a report from '95, and we did it overnight there, and we actually got some interesting thermal footage. I like to get out and use different types of night optics gear, night vision, and thermal units and stuff. And so I took my brother and my nephews out, and man, I don't know if you got to see the footage already, but I shared that out, and we did a follow up as well, investigation, which we didn't get too far with that, but we got some very interesting footage. So I got to send that your way. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I've been doing these live streams lately, and just been kind of going over some of my footage. And there's a lot of weird anomalies and beings. I'll say they're beings, and you got to check it out, man. It's all Bigfoot. There's one that really looks kind of dogman-y too, but yeah, interesting area, and now we'll see what happens with everything that's going on now. Um, yeah,
Dang, man. That's some Freaking crazy stuff right there for sure. I always find stuff in general interesting, but just usually here because of how many people are missing and how much information needs to be properly aligned out there with the Dogman and stuff and prehistoric and modern day predator behaviors and all that. I really try to focus my time on that. But now that I feel like I'm getting that a little bit more properly aligned with my science team, where we're all putting out good stuff, I want to be able to, dive a little bit more into some other interesting topics and things that have been stuck up in the good old filing cabinet of my brain for years. That's why I started Camp Nightmare Fuel with my co-host Barb Hartman. That way, just things that are super interesting I learn about daily can be put out there, whether it's things about dinosaurs or giant insects or, like I said, unsolved mysteries or things that give people the, heebie-jeebies. So
Yeah, that type of stuff's always had my interest, so I'm sure I'll be checking that out.
you're going to be on there too, man. Appreciate you. That's great
Okay,
stuff.
hey, that
Heck
sounds
yeah.
good to me. I'll be sure to jot that down on the calendar. And yeah, another thing I wanted to touch on, I get to tend to be all over the place at times. Another topic I wanted to touch on while we were talking about this area of California is also Pasadena, Altadena. There's a lot of, I don't know if you've gotten into the old world topic, the Tartaria thing, but in that topic, the Dogman does come up. It's interesting because there's the whole cryptid thing tends to come up, and when I got into it, I had no idea that there's anything to do with that. But yeah, giants come up and all types of other interesting stuff. But yeah, this area here tends to have a lot of these old world buildings, and when you find these types of places, there's a good chance that there was a lot more going on in these areas. So yeah, I'm really starting to dive, and I was already diving into this area. You also have NASA JPL there, which is super interesting because Jack Parsons comes up, and if you get into Jack Parsons and all that and some of the occult stuff he was getting into, it's definitely a rabbit hole there. And yeah, I think it all, uh not to say that Dogman or when you get into this occult stuff, certain things start to pop up, and it wouldn't surprise me if I were if I were to dig and start finding maybe Dogman or werewolf type related stuff from around these areas, but haven't gotten there yet, and just wanted to put that out there.
Great stuff right there. No, I'm not too familiar with that. I do know on my science team, Dennis Carroll, which you know of, and some others are great historians, specialize in the occult, just aspects. So they actually might know a ton about that, but I have never personally really dove too much into that. The only really old world things I've heard of from your area, and I don't even know if it's definitely not old world, was something about the potential lizard people that was
Oh yeah.
described to a like engineer or something along the lines of that, or someone that had a bunch of money, but he ended up running out of funding when he was trying to dig in the area. Something happened with like rain and such. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I believe so. It's the whole the underground lizards.
Yep.
Yeah, it's this whole underworld that people have talked about. Because yeah, there's a lot more evidence these days. I mean, there's a young guy who's out of Los Angeles who's actually doing some documentaries on some of the tunnels under LA, and he's getting permission and like getting tours from official people. People who are down there working on these I guess projects. It seems like they got things going on, but yeah, a lot of people never knew that there was like underground railroad systems down there, and which once again comes back to the old world topic. Yeah, a lot of these cities have things that we had no idea, a lot of things going on under our feet, and tonight we'll be getting into that. We're going to be talking a little archaeology and um, ancient civilizations. So, once again, digging, digging, digging. The more we dig, it seems like the more we find. So, yeah.
Ooh, great stuff right there, man, for sure. The only thing I can think of that is more terrifying than what you just said is the Paris catacombs and how people have been lost supposedly underneath there, surrounded by bones everywhere. That is straight up traumatizing. I wanted to ask somebody this, and I keep on having chances to because I don't dive into this. I am a scientific person. I understand there's cave systems, which means, yeah, obviously there's layers to Earth. What am I missing here? So when people use the term hollow Earth, okay, and they don't believe in it, is that them saying that they don't believe that there's caves that lead to different spots of inside the Earth? Because that would be not logical. There are so many caves, and like our spelunker says, only 10% reattached to the surface, which would obviously mean that there's different layers to Earth, correct?
I agree, and yeah, there's just a lot of evidence, especially nowadays. With there's new tech. Are you familiar with lidar?
Yeah, we've been
Um,
trying to use that on some of our footprints and things that are potentially unknown. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So and even us as like Bigfooters have been using it for I haven't used it for tracks, but some of my buddies have, and I definitely got an app now, and yeah, can't wait to put it to use. But yeah, they're using that stuff to find like pyramids in some of these places we're going to be talking about. And so I wonder with that the that I don't know how far it penetrates underground, but I'm sure they might be able to discover maybe some new openings, caves, and stuff like that that may lead to further inside the earth.
Before, again, I let you start rolling away here, where do you feel Dogman, fit into? Like, again, I have talked about it numerous times and why I believe, yes, hyenas and things are still kicking around, but why I'm still not fully understanding the whole occult side. That's, not my specialty. But when it comes to like Sasquatch, I'm never 100 on anything, but I'm 99.99999%. Yes, there's too many brilliant minds. I think the question is now, and I think it's both, not one or the other, but is it more primate based or is it prehistoric hominoid human? Which I think if you look at different areas and descriptions of what they look like and how they act, I think it is right there in front of us that some are acting more primate based and some are acting more prehistoric human based, right? And
And yeah, and then you also have the ones with more paranormal, possible
mhm,
paranormal abilities. And I think there's definitely something to that, although there's the camp that don't go that way. They're very like science based, but I feel like science is also changing. I see science constantly changing towards the way we're viewing things, and like so we, for example, we will get on maybe a certain topic, like outside of science, people will discover something, or maybe jump on some sort of train of some sort, and then before you know it, science will be in the process of basically accepting whatever it might be. I'm just kind of using an example there, and I'm seeing more and more in that, and like nowadays, like you got talking UFOs. I mean, they call them UAPs, which I think could be two separate things, and yeah, so it's just the talk of these things is coming out more and more from people in certain positions. So, it's like for me, I don't need their confirmation, but there's people out there that do. But yeah, it's fun to see that, happen, and yeah, I can't wait to see what else is in store for 2025. I think there's going to be a whole lot happening. I mean, it's happening already, and yeah, I don't know if you want to dive into some of the topics that I had in mind tonight, but I thought I was thinking like, all right, let's try. For myself, I wanted to try something different. I've been hearing a lot of different new things coming out from this circuit, talking Dogman, werewolves, and stuff. Like the hyena stuff is I've had heard of that before, but I'm hearing a lot more of it, and the different variations of these possible cryptids, and and then also the talk of the supernatural aspects once again, and I don't know, maybe in you could tell me, but is it kind of like in the Bigfoot world where you have more science-based people and then maybe a crowd that doesn't believe in the spiritual side? Because I've heard a lot of paranormal stuff having to do with these creatures as well.
Man, that's great stuff. And yeah, of course, we got to roll with what you have to dive into, my friend. Pretty much broad term of how I like to personally break it down is, I mean, you got your type one, which looks like Van Helsing or the Howling Werewolf or Dogman. Okay. Yes, Dogman. I mean, I'm guilty of using werewolf as well. Okay. But is what it is. There's a big difference. Then you got your type two, which looks like a German Shepherd. Your type three, which looks like a hyena. Okay, and then you have your type four, which is like a devil, monkey, gugway, you know,
Mhm.
baboon like Dogman. And then you have your type five, which is your bear man, bearzilla, and then your type six, which is like coyote man. They're all differently in how they're described and such, but they're still potentially listed, like you were saying, under that same kind of triangle of, well, this is a dog man, but like my science team and such really tries to stress is, even Linda Godfrey, rest in peace, my friend, said that she wishes she didn't choose that name. I don't really think canine's involved as much as people want to grasp onto. I think it's more baboon primate and also hyena based. That's pretty much in the direction that we're trying to, really get that proper information out there. And like you were saying, with science, there's good science and bad science. So I've built a team around me that has an open mind, but that they're all scientists. Okay, they have the nice letters in front of their name. They can really sit there now and talk with other scientists. They've brought a lot of clarity. You have definitely different sides outside of what we're doing. I sit back and look at the people that are so science based, which is good because I'm wicked science based, but there's a point in time where things need to be looked at also in other angles that won't budge at all. And then you have the cryptid people that think just because an acorn hits your roof at night, it has to be the Jersey Devil. Well, you have branches, it's windy outside, there's, like I said, pine cones, like all kinds of other reasons what that could have been on your roof. They automatically always grasp onto the madness. Well, I've tried to have it where we have people that are open to trying to figure out what's going on, but we don't just hop at every madness. And we've tried to put together like a good science aspect. I always use this example. You had a group of people with a Tyrannosaurus Rex that were just going head and head. Great scientists. And the latter side was on the first side's part at one point, but then switched because they understood there was a change that needed to be recognized. Well, the original side kept saying this new species found had to be not a new species, but a juvenile T-Rex. This other side is like, no, it can't be a juvenile T-Rex because look at its bones, how it's set up. It's not going to ever grow to be like that. Guess what happens? More science comes out. Boom, the latter side, who opened their mind to step back for a second, then came to the proper conclusion. Wait a second. Yes, it's not a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's a new species called the Nanosaurus Rex. That's what I mean with anything. You definitely want to make sure you got the good science and such behind things. But I feel like it is important to, have people that actually have the credentials to speak properly on the topic, which is what I've pretty much tried to mesh.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think it's tough in that whole world of science and archaeology. I think there's yeah, a whole lot of politics going on there, and it's yeah, I think that those scenes are dark as well. I feel there's a lot of gatekeeping with information and uh yeah, it's tough. And yeah, it also brings me to question a lot of obviously our history and what we've been taught and what people are putting out there. um Again, there's I feel like there's specific people that are placed in positions to do this type of work, whether it be archaeology or the science, and yeah, they're cut out, in a certain way and to think a certain way. So yeah, it's good to have the good guys out there, and salute and props to those guys. And yeah, it's just they're tough to find too, I think. Um, that also brings me to just the topic I wanted to get into. So, yeah, talking these different cryptids, beings, and the different variations had me thinking, you know, is there anything that I could think of growing up, or you know, culturally that relates to me, that falls into this topic? And actually, my parents are my dad's Mexican and my mom is from South America, Venezuela. And so I was thinking, growing up, we always, in those cultures, and even in different Spanish speaking cultures here in the Americas, there's always been talks of el hombre lobo, the wolf man. And so that's always been a thing. And so I wonder where that comes from, where that developed from. And also just being curious of my background. I back in the days, like when I first started diving into these different types of subjects, I started learning more about, the my roots, and then, Mexico's a big country. And of course, you get into the different cultures that were around there, and they're very fascinating. You have the Aztec, the Maya, um, and one culture that many don't hear about, and they consider it the mother culture of those civilizations, and they say it may have even been around before the Incas, is the Olmecs. And I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, but they're very fascinating. When I first found out about the Olmecs, I was super intrigued, and they're from the southern part of Mexico, and um, and they say that a lot of these other cultures that we mentioned, like the Aztec, Maya, Inca, they actually got a lot of their cultural things from the Olmec. And um, and the Olmec is a name that they gave them after. They say they didn't call themselves that. And Olmec meaning rubber people. So there's these rubber trees in the area, and it was those that was one uh, product that they used a lot. I guess they say. Um, and I say I guess because I question a lot of the information that comes out there, and I feel that, yeah, these institutions and these people do put out some truth with the information, but like I said, I question everything. I just wonder how some of these people could decipher certain uh, uh, languages or tablets and stuff like that. It's just mind blowing. But I do feel there is some truth to the information that's out there. So the Olmec, yes, they were around way back. And one thing that was fascinating about them was that they were there's a lot of art in their culture. They're artisans, and they work with different materials like jade, obsidian, and there's these amazing huge heads that they left behind. They believe that they made these heads, and that's what they're pretty much famous for, is these giant heads. And some of them were like buried under the ground, some were found in different places in the jungle, and just very mysterious. They have no idea how they were able to carve these things. There was none of that material that in the area, and there was an area quite a distance away where there was some of this material that they believe they may have gotten it from. They have no idea how they would have transported it to the area. So there's a mystery there, and there's a lot more mysteries with the Olmecs. And yes, their features is another thing. So these big heads had these strong facial features, and a lot of them seem to be wearing these strange, interesting, like almost like warrior helmets. And some of these features are very, some people were saying African. African came to mind, and this whole other theory came up that these Olmec people could have been Africans who had navigated way back in the day, and but some people, I guess they say they debunked that theory. And at first, I was along, I was with the African theory, because I was like, oh yeah, it's very possible that they could have been, you hear about the Moors navigating and stuff like that. And but then I started finding out more information about melanated people who were already here before the slave movement out here. And yeah, so I think there's definitely something to that. And yeah, another feature of the Olmecs were a lot of them look very Asian like also. And so that I found that very interesting. And they also had shamans in their culture. And so there was also talks of medicines like psychedelics being used. And yeah, it's just a lot of trippy stuff. So I recommend you diving into this stuff. And so I was doing a little research recently on the Olmecs, and doing like doing a little recap on stuff, because it came to my attention. And I was getting into this part about the shamans again. And I was reading. I also wanted to mention that they say the long count calendars. There's this calendar that the Aztec and the Maya used, um, or the Maya used, that possibly came from the Olmecs as well. Also, the ball game. There's this ball game uh, that the Aztecs played, and the Maya. They also had. There's evidence that they had gotten that game from them. So a lot of things coming from the Olmecs, and also evidence of them, having knowledge of astrology. And so, yeah, fascinating stuff. And so with the shamans, getting into that, I started finding certain little interesting things here and there. And then looking at some of the sculptures and some of the art they were depicting, you started I started finding what looked like almost like it looks like almost like dragon like, almost reptilian like beings, strange creatures and stuff. And yeah, they started talking about that the Olmecs, the shamans, were able to perform these rituals where they would wear these skins. And at that time, I guess the jaguar was very much revered in that society. And yeah, so there's this ritual where the shaman would wear the skin of a jaguar and would transform into a jaguar. So they were calling these beings jaguars, or no, excuse me, I call them jaguars, is were jags. And I was just blown away by that. And I was like, okay, here we go, finding some very interesting information in antiquity about some of these types of beings, because the whole idea of the skinwalker came to mind, and then so I started finding some similarities there. um you have the ritual. I wouldn't doubt it. And so I don't know if any of that was involved with these particular rituals of the werejag. But yeah, they were even depicting there's like baby sculptures of what looked like the baby in stages of transformation into these werejags. And yeah, I was like, you know what? I haven't heard anyone, in the realm of the Dogman and werewolves mention these. I've heard of the hyenas lately, but I thought it was super interesting to hear about these werejags. Have you heard anything about this?
Great stuff right there, man. Just absolutely epic. I'm just sitting here listening and drinking my coconut water and being like, yes, let's go. Brain power. Because
Hey, cheers.
heard of much of that actually. I've heard only a tad bit of what you said. It's absolutely great that you just flooded the brain with some good old filling up the file cabinet information. I've heard a little bit from, I believe it was Dennis Carroll actually, about this group of assassins that were, I believe, in Africa. I have little thumbnails with some information about them, but yeah, they apparently were leopard people, but I hadn't heard about what you had said with the jaguar aspects. It is super interesting because there are just so many cultures that speak about these were beings, and it's so bizarre, man, right?
Well, yeah. And I was actually taking a little sip there. You made me thirsty with the coconut water there. It's one of my favorites.
It's so
I could
good,
live off
bro.
that.
Seriously,
um,
I'm so bad at drinking regular water, but coconut water I could drink all day.
Good for you, man. Yeah, I hear, they say you could use it as like an IV, and I actually had a fresh coconut the other day, which I hadn't had in a long time. But yeah, good for you, man. Um, yeah, what were we saying?
Oh, it's talking about the were leopards or the were
Yeah,
hyenas because
where
yeah,
the
yep.
were jaguar. Yeah, and the jaguar is big in Mexico. Um, and I don't know, as of late, they've been reporting. And I don't think we talked about this last time, but I've been seeing some video reports out of Arizona here, video news reports. They're capturing what look like jaguars, if I'm not mistaken. If not, they're leopards, and I don't think they're leopards because anyway, they're getting them on game cam, and they're saying that they're coming up from way down in Mexico, but they're making it across the border, and they're starting to get them here in the states, and so that's pretty trippy, I thought. And it probably, who knows, maybe they did roam up here at one time. I'm not sure about that, and they're just maybe making a comeback, but I don't know, man. It's definitely something to look out for. You might have a jaguar around you here soon.
Man, you hit it right on the head, bro. You actually got the information correct without even knowing you did because yeah, they did roam here at a point in time. Our science team has tried to stress to everybody that animals will always reclaim their original habitat. It's bred into them, so at points in time they lived there, which is why they're coming back. Also, here's another thing too. People don't realize timber wolves and gray wolves are pretty big. All right. Yeah, when you go up to Canada, they're even bigger. But we're talking about here right now because you have people that will be, per se, down in Tennessee or Kentucky or in other areas, and they'll find this canine print. And wolves and things are big, but that's not what I'm trying to get at right here. Someone will be like, all right, well, there's only red wolves down here in Tennessee. Okay, yeah. I mean, sure that you have a healthy, established population, but wolves, like a timber wolf or gray wolf, travel like 350 miles away from their den. They will feed anywhere from like 35 miles away and under. 350 miles. Okay. It's not really hard to think that a male wolf or female wolf, whoever's running the pack, or some others with her or him go down and just scout out their 350-mile range and pop through down into certain areas where they're not technically always supposed to be. And then somebody sees that print, automatically thinks it has to be a Dogman, right? And then recently there was a cougar that was tracked all the way from the Midwest up to the East Coast, where unfortunately I believe it got hit on the highway in Pennsylvania. But I mean, it triggered on people's trail cams and people saw it, verbally,
Yep.
etc. That shows you right there. I think people get a misconception that there's a magic line, okay? That
Yep.
all of a sudden grizzly bears just come down this little small area from Canada where they're everywhere, but then they just come down this little small area and they don't go anywhere out of that little small area in the United States. It's like, wait a second, like, is there a magic border that per
Uh-huh.
se keeps this animal where, hey, I'm coming? Nope. Oh, this is California. I got to turn around. No, it
Yeah, you
doesn't
need a
work like
passport.
right? And I'll give you an example for that. 100%. When I was younger in Westbrook, right, which was an area in Maine, it was pretty late at night because, yeah, I used to, just be a little punk, whatever. And I'm sitting there waiting for this light to turn green. And it's like, man, 1:30, 2:30 in the morning. And I'm heading home because my parents obviously don't know I'm out being a little, punk. All of a sudden, I swear I am seeing an enormous moose. And I blink my eyes and shake my eyes. And yeah, sure enough, this moose was like slipping and sliding across the pavement, looked at me, and then ran off down in between these houses. We're talking about Main Street, Westbrook, which is pretty suburban, man. I mean, it's like a smaller city off of Portland, which is a larger city. But dude, you gotta drive at least a solid 10 to 12 minutes, depending on traffic, before you get to any sort of really dense forest anywhere. So the fact that this moose was downtown by the library and a gas station, it was just like, what the heck were you thinking, dude? You obviously saw more and more houses and more human-made things were in your way. And what were you like? Oh, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep on going. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing?
Oh yeah, that's cool that you've seen that. I've never seen a moose, not yet, but yeah, you describing that definitely makes me chuckle, man.
Well, it just shows you, like you were saying. I mean, there isn't this like magical little area, So it's
Yeah.
obviously makes sense. The Jaguars are coming back up. It makes sense. This cougar went all the way across the country. It makes sense. Wolves traveled down to Tennessee, and it makes sense. Moose decide to just go way out of the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, and it makes sense that there's these border patrol reports,
Hmm.
of you name it, Bigfoot, Dogman, whatever. Um, yeah, so to me, and I've been talking about that lately because I even heard someone who I respect. Uh, they didn't believe that. Yeah, they have that border in their mind that they don't think certain things could be in other countries that border ours, or you know I don't know. I just I feel like, yeah, these things could roam wherever they want. And then talking more on the once again the spiritual aspect of these things. How do you feel about these certain varieties? Are they all, do they have a spiritual aspect? Do you focus on that? Are you not with the spiritual part of these things? Do you think these things are interdimensional? Because I've heard a lot of that. And so, yeah, if that's the case, also, of course, it's not going to have the border issue. So yeah, I don't know. I just
Great stuff right
question that
there,
a
man.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we're starting to tie this up because you're a busy man, my response to that is definitely there is subdivisions, kind of like I just explained with like my thoughts on like the Sasquatch and things. So I think there is a physical based thing, which I really try to personally specialize in, like the prehistoric and modern day predators that are still kicking around, whether it's cave hyenas or short-faced cave bears or dire wolves or modern day baboons and hyenas that are still being misidentified, or an unknown baboon type dogman species and such. But then also you do have other people that have encounters that seem way more potentially paranormal or spiritual based, where they swear you could see this thing was transparent, but it was here, etc. And then you also have
Hmm.
a lot of other people that have the extraterrestrial stuff where they say that they saw these things wearing basically like Starship Trooper type stuff. That's why we here personally try to break it down where you have people that specialize in each one of those. It's people that had those more paranormal slash spiritual ones where it manifested. I try to gear them in the proper direction, like Dennis Carroll and Jessica Jones and people like that that
Right.
can really, yeah. And then people that are dealing with things that they think, yeah, it looked like potentially a giant baboon, maybe. Now that you're talking about that, I'm like, all right, well, I think I can explain some things to you and show you why, this is potentially why I think that. And I feel comfortable.
Right. And so for me, a big, you know, uh, how would you say, a flag, a red flag, for me is just the shaman connection in this information on of the Olmecs. It reminds me once again of some of the Native American talks of some of those rituals that they do. to be able to transform into these entities. So yeah, to see that in this culture, I feel that there's something to that. And also, if there's psychedelics involved as well, I think there's something there. Some people might call it the spirit world. And even the doc you mentioned, salute to Dr. Dennis Carroll. I call him Doc. Um, yeah, I would imagine maybe he would look at it as more of, since it is a spiritual, a ritual of some sort, that it might fall into something very negative. And yeah, I guess that's all a perspective, that one may have, depending on your beliefs or your religion. Um, but who knows, maybe it wasn't an evil thing, but it seems to me like, for the most part, I always get a dark and a pretty evil vibe from these things. I know uh, there's been accounts of what sound like positive encounters, and I wonder about that. Yeah, for the most part, it seems pretty dark. And we know that, yeah, some of these cultures were doing some pretty dark stuff. We're talking about the sacrifices, and who knows what other customs they were practicing while doing these rituals. And maybe maybe to them it wasn't a dark thing. It was just part of who they were, and what they did. It's just us now, so-called modern day. Yeah, we look at it as very foreign. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely think there's a whole spiritual aspect to all of this. And when I say all of it, I'm talking everything: the Bigfoot, the UFOs. Because I've even heard of some reports of Dogman and UFOs being seen, or them coming out of UFOs, and that you hear more of that with the Bigfoot as well. And at first it's hard to swallow, but and a lot of these encounters and information that's out there, for me, I find it hard to swallow. But once I get little tidbits, or if there's something that I could relate to that's happened to me, because I love getting out in the field and documenting as much as possible. And there is strange stuff going on out there for sure. And yeah, so I feel there is something to all of this. I know that a lot of people are in probably on the fence still. I was for a long time. For a long time I was, not that I didn't believe, but I just wasn't there. I just wasn't focused on the Dogman stuff, and I'm not, haven't done any deep dives yet either. I kind of, it comes into my world, being into Bigfoot and all that. There's something here with this topic, and then we're finding out more and more, and it's once again, it's interesting to see play out, as it comes out into the open. And hopefully, yeah, we get some more solid good information from folks, because there is a lot of, with the good information, there's the, we're in the world of polarity, so there's the opposite, where you get a lot of BS and stuff that we know probably isn't true.
And great stuff right there, and well spoken. And I couldn't agree more. That's all super interesting and imperative stuff right there. There's definitely a lot of layers to things, which is why it's super important to make sure that, in my eyes, people that feel comfortable dealing with whether it's paranormal based and spiritual stuff, or potentially extraterrestrial, or like I said, where I feel comfortable, dealing with the side that I try to dive into, it's definitely important. Appreciate you sitting down tonight, my friend, with us. Is there anything else you'd like to touch base
Yeah,
on?
there is actually, actually is a little something. There always is something, and I always kick myself when I end a conversation with someone, and then you remember certain things. But hopefully we touched on quite a bit there. And like I said, there's always more to go in. I mean, we're just going off the top of the head here. I didn't use any notes tonight or anything like that. I didn't have anything to refer to. It's just stuff that I was on my mind, and we could definitely dive into it more. I mean, the Olmec culture is so complex. We're just barely touching the surface here. And I recommend any listeners out there to do a dive themselves. They'll find it definitely fascinating and interesting. But speaking, I was in a chat recently, and someone had mentioned they were talking werewolves, Dogman, and other things, and the topic of the Viking, the berserkers, came up, and I pay attention to, I guess you call it etymology, the words and certain symbols, numbers, uh, astrology and different things, that can help you decipher stuff. And it just gets me thinking, and I like this type of thinking. But anyway, so they were mentioning the berserkers, and from what I understand, also that the berserkers used to use the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is like the red mushroom with the white dots on it, like the Mario Brothers mushroom, and it would help them go into these into like this berserker mode. And so I was like, wow. And I think there's a few things that I might leave out, but the word berserker, barrage, came to mind. And I don't know if you remember Wolverine from the X-Men. So you got Wolverine, which, the Wolverine, it's not a wolf, but the word wolf is in there. So I thought wolf, wolves, dogmen, berserkers, the Amanita, all this stuff came to mind. And maybe you could add a few things there. Maybe later some other things might pop up. But yeah, when I do my little brainstorms, things like that, I'll kick around, and sometimes it'll lead us further down the rabbit hole. But just wanted to mention that little wolf related stuff. And yeah, maybe that'll be a topic we could get into next time. Maybe there's something there for us.
Great stuff, man. And yeah, of course, we're going to continue to collaborate. So, I mean, we got to keep people coming back to listen to what we're going to talk about. So, it's always good to make sure that there's more information in general, which, yeah, we'll definitely never run out of that. I mean, I have 550 pages and tons I need to add to just strange crap that's been happening all in my book, man. Bizarre for sure. And well, thanks again, man, for popping in tonight and hanging out with us. But to the audience, yes, we do need to allow Brown Dwarf to get back to things he needs to do. And obviously, things out his way are a little bit chaotic right now. Again, though, make sure if you want to hear more of what he's been up to with myself, well, we got a playlist that you can just click on. But if not, go over to his thread, which the link will be up in the description. And yes, Dwarf dives into everything else that I don't really touch base on here. So if you're interested in things outside of what we do here at Midnight Lycanthropy, well, please do go over and check out what he's churning out. And please, if you do subscribe to all of us, well, I assume you like what we're doing. Make sure to hit that like button because, yes, YouTube, if you don't get the likes, they don't really like us, it seems. Please help out. Show some love, and thanks for hanging out tonight, man.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on. And you might notice that I changed my name there. It'll be Bigfoot Dwarf, but I got all types of AKAs, so don't trip. It's still Brown Dwarf. My handle's still Brown Dwarf. And yeah, I appreciate the plug there. And also, yeah, man, I'm gonna come back with something new like we did this time. Also next time. So stay tuned, and thank you, everyone.
My creatures of the night, I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, feed the algorithm, and keep your head on a swivel.